The investigators among you will have already deduced from the title, if nothing else, that this short video is about the characters that appear in this Call of Cthulhu 6th edition campaign. Now, this video was recorded at the beginning of episode 3, although you won't see it at the beginning of episode 3, you're seeing it here. And the reason why we did that is that was the first time that all 3 players actually gathered together to play together. Right, so episode 1 features Ivan. Episode 2, we introduce Joe, and he and Ivan get in trouble together. Then in episode 3, the 2 of them go and recruit Brian. So each character is added from episodes 1, 2, and 3 as the investigation grows to include them. And so each player is hearing about the details of the investigation in character, in real time. When you see them learn a detail, they're learning the detail then. Their character is, and they are together. So when all 3 characters were together, I felt it was an appropriate time to establish who these characters are, what we know about each other. And so we briefly talked about the basics, and that conveniently also lets me share it with you. So there's one more character that has been involved throughout. And this is a character that is, well, being played as an NPC, but at any moment could be adopted by a 4th player to join, or if one of the original 3 finds themselves without a character, that sort of thing, they could take over this character with little or no difficulty. They have experience of the character, and the character has been playing kind of a minimal background role due to an injury. That character is Edward Driscoll, Eddie, a former prize fighter who's now working as a confidential investigator, or as everybody else calls him, a PI. Now, Edward is often attached to scandal. He regularly has difficulty making ends meet. His name keeps getting into the paper because of the type of connections he has, the type of life he leads, his former glory, his ties to old friends and who now have better jobs, such as on the police force or the town council and that kind of thing. Even so, he's just barely scraping by. He has a front to maintain. He likes to maintain a rough exterior. He's known as being a heavy drinker, even though it's prohibition. He has ties to dangerous people, and he can track you down wherever you go. How much of that is true, how much of that is bravado, how much of that is just PR is anybody's guess. And maybe we'll get to see that play out a little bit in the campaign. The campaign's not really about him. He's just one piece of the puzzle, and he might not survive contact with the enemy. None of the characters might. But he's a character that I've already grown attached to. There's a good feeling of rapport and banter and competitiveness that we have established between Eddie and Ivan's character, Terrence. They're connected by means of being friends from high school who've gone on divergent paths, but are still struggling to claw their way out of the lower echelons of society. And the Great Depression isn't making that any easier. But anyway, enough about this NPC character. Let's get on and find out about the first character from session 1, Ivan's character, Terrence. The characters are connected by profession more than anything else, really. Right? Ivan, can you give us a brief synopsis of Terrence McSweeney?
Well, Terrence McSweeney, he's a reporter for the Boston Post, not the Boston Globe, but the Boston Post. He's a youngish man, about 27 or so. Um, Not exactly straight laced, but he's a straight shooter. He's a man of the people. He wants to get to the bottom of things. He wants the people have a right to know, and he has a right to become a really well paid reporter. So a bit of both, and he's just trying to make ends meet. He's an intelligent guy, friendly guy to his associates. But has a reputation for getting the story, getting things done, getting to the bottom of things. And maybe sometimes he does things that aren't quite exactly legal to get it, but you know, you know, but he's also not a guy that can really back things up when the chips are down. Like if he gets himself into a lot of trouble, he's in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Callum McInnes. Tell us a brief thing about your ideas about Callum McInnes, Joe.
So he's a down on his luck crime scene photographer. He's been mugged a couple times in the past, so that's why he carries around a little 38 pistol on him. And yeah, he's desperate for money. He's behind on his rent. He might be getting evicted soon, and that's why he jumped at the first chance of a job when he got the phone call about this weird case. And so that's why he was Johnny on the spot and ready to go. His car is almost out of gas, and
it's a nice car though.
It's a nice ride, man. Like I hope so, because Callum might be living in it pretty soon. And that's Callum.
Okay. Before things got uncomfortable at the end of the last session, there was discussion about taking the book and seeing if we can sort out who might be able to fence it or work with it in some way, or maybe just at least identify what's going on with this book, why anyone would care about it, why anyone would abduct one of the Gavigans for, to obtain it and its two sister volumes. And so that brings us to Brian.
Hello.
Brian, can you give us a quick idea of who they're going to call?
Sure. My character's name is Alfred Smalls. He is anything but a small person. He is just as the dice decreed. He's got I guess you could say on a scale from 3 to 18, he's got a size of 17, and he's got a strength of 4. So he's a very large, girthy fellow. He's in his early 40s. So he's very got a lively life of the mind, but not so much of the he's the antithesis of your action hero. In fact, when I was sharing the character with Anthony, he came up with he remembered Nero Wolfe, the character of Nero Wolfe, who was also a sort of a large protagonist who oftentimes is an armchair detective more than a fence climber or running down the mean streets. So Alfred is an antiquarian by occupation, by profession. I haven't decided, or I haven't figured out, or maybe it'll come around in the story if he's if he's kind of an antiquarian in terms of like being sort of a trust fund kind of a person, kind of does this to keep himself, occupied, or I'm kind of getting the sense that he might own a small business, maybe an appraisal house, or essentially like a high-end junk dealer, like an
that sounds good.
Yeah, kind of a yeah, like a nice maybe like a junk store on Newbury Street in Boston, which would make it kind of like a nice, it's
Right.
more like antiques rather than junk and salvage, but whatever. Um, yeah. So he's not at all acquainted yet with anything supernatural or the occult or sinister. He's about as as everyday as you can imagine. So uh, yeah. So there you go. So just a very large man, some holding court behind a small counter, um, in a smallish shop.
Right. Okay.